Three letters can mean so much. Three letters can mean different things to different people. Three letters can change the course of someone's life forever. Those three letters I'm talking about, of course, are HIV. Growing up in the 90s, there was only one message: wear a condom or you will die from gay sex. Fast forward to 2024, and things have changed. And bringing us the news of that change is my guest today. I'm Patrick Marano, and this is Queerly Us. Before we begin, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Diagnosed with AIDS on his 27th birthday, he underwent a profound transformation, shedding a lifelong victim mindset through inner work and ongoing self-education. His focus shifted to promoting self-empowerment on social media. Today, he's a dedicated HIV advocate and content creator, host for Emmy-nominated Plus Life Media, co-chair for the Hope Collaboratory for HIV Cure Research, and, one of my favorite things, a natural professional physique bodybuilder. We're going to talk about that in a bit. He works to educate, uplift, and reduce stigma surrounding HIV, embodying a commitment to resilience and empowerment. Please welcome Raif Derrazi to the show.
Oh, do go on. I'm flattered.
Well, I mean, you did send that to me, so
I did.
Yeah.
I wrote it so well.
You have a way with words, I will say. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
I have been watching your channel for a while. As somebody who is HIV positive, it jumped out at me because I feel like we don't have a lot of places to receive information, current information. You know, it's baffling to me. Not baffling, I shouldn't say that. It's surprising to me sometimes people's ignorance around the topic. But then I have to remember that it's not mainstream media is not, you know, pumping out the information. They're not keeping us abreast of the latest news and research and stuff. So that's why, I mean, what you do is so important. And I've just loved watching it. Like I said, as somebody with HIV, to hear about advancements and stuff makes me feel feelings. I get the feels, you know? I want to jump right in here. Because I don't know how long people listen to these podcasts that can go on for a while. I want to start at the beginning while we have people. Can you share with us what's the latest? What's happening with HIV, you know, with research and advancements, treatments? What are you in the mix about right now?
There is so much going on in this world related to HIV, and there's so little that gets communicated to, you know, everyday people. So I have so much running through my head right now. As far as HIV cure goes, are so many different labs, so many different investigators, organizations, private entities, government-funded entities here in the US, around the world, all working on different modalities, different ways of approaching an HIV cure. We've achieved cure in a handful of men, primarily. But it's not feasible for the general population because it's very dangerous and you have to suppress your immune system. And it's usually someone who already has cancer, so they have the reason to undergo a procedure that could be potentially life-threatening because the threat of cancer is even greater. So that's all happening. There's so many different, you know, studies that are going on. Then we have advancements in HIV medication. I mean, one pill once a day is already phenomenal, and we have little to no side effects for a lot of people. But then now we have injectables rolling out where it's an injection that you get once every 2 months. We have things in the pipeline for once every 6 months.
So talk to me about the injectables then. Like, who qualifies for something like the injectables?
So right now, I think there's a little bit of caution as far as rolling it out because, you know, naturally healthcare providers want more and more data for side effects, how people handle it. But it's really, really especially handy for folks who are unhoused in particular, or who have a hard time remembering to take their medication, who don't have access to consistent medication, or who don't necessarily want a daily reminder. and who maybe are suffering from mental health because they have to see this pill every day, and it's a reminder of their HIV status, and with it the stigma and all of that. So and as a side note, what I think is fascinating about the whole injectable scene now is that this potentially eviscerates the argument over disclosure, because there's so much pushback. It's such a hot button topic. Like, do people living with HIV have to disclose their status to sexual partners if they're undetectable, per se? Okay. Because if you're undetectable, I'll just put this out there, you cannot sexually transmit HIV to your sexual partners.
Yes.
So someone's undetectable, they say, I shouldn't have to tell anybody because it's my private medical information. It's now a manageable chronic condition. I can't pass it on. It's nobody else's business. The other party says, well, how do I know you're taking your medication properly? How do I know you're being honest with me? Well, the injections come with the cape ready to save the day. And it's like, if you've got your injection in the last 6 months plus, whatever it is, when this new medication rolls out, there's no question. There's no daily need to do it. It's done. I had my injection. I'm undetectable. The end.
What I can hear people, so on my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about cruising and bathhouses and stuff. So I get a lot of comments about, yeah, that's a great way to get AIDS. There's a lot of ignorance out there.
And you can't catch AIDS, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Well, they think they're going to go to the bathhouse once and walk out with full-blown AIDS.
Right.
So, I mean,
lesions.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, full-on KS. Like, so I can hear them saying, if they're not disclosing, as somebody who is undetectable, do you know that you're always undetectable? What if you become undetectable at a certain point? Is there that sort of window? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So what I can speak to is many studies that have been done regarding people who are undetectable in serodiscordant relationships, meaning one person is HIV positive, one person's HIV negative, having unprotected sex. Over hundreds of thousands of sexual acts unprotected in this situation where there was no transmission. If there was a transmission, it was because of some extra scenario that doesn't follow what the study is about, which is if you're undetectable, you don't transmit. Now, the topic of viral blips has come up, and that's when you are undetectable and then suddenly you go in and get your lab work done and suddenly, now we're detecting a little bit of virus in your blood. And what happens then? Does that mean you're detectable for that brief period of time? It's common for us to have blips every once in a while.
Sure.
Research has now come out to show that even if you have a viral blip, you're still undetectable. So the way they measure your viral load is if you are under 200 copies per milliliter of blood, you're considered undetectable. As long as you're still under that 200 threshold, meaning if you have a viral blip, it comes back and it shows 36 or something, you go, oh my gosh, I'm not undetectable, I have 36. No, that's incorrect. You still are undetectable and you can't transmit it. I'll just say this really quick before I bore the audience, but even though you and I are suppressed and we're undetectable, there is still virus in our body. That's why we're not cured. And this virus is essentially sleeping. It's hibernating. But a byproduct of this hibernating virus is that it's releasing these proteins that are incomplete virus. They aren't viable. They can't replicate. They can't do anything to the body. However, they do create an immune inflammatory response ongoing. But these particles are what is detected occasionally and cause the blips. We still can't transmit it.
Right. Okay. That's good to know because, you got these people, nothing's 100%. And listen, sex is a risk. I'm just going to say, right? Yeah. So if you don't have it. Anyway.
Or add to the toolbox, we have condoms.
Yes.
We have other things that are safer, like
PrEP,
oral and things like that. We have PrEP, which, by the way, we have Truvada is the most well known. We have another, I think it's Descovy that's out now. It's another pill. And then we also have injectable PrEP that's rolling out.
Oh, for God's sake.
So you don't even have to take it every day. And now we have this advisory that you can, if you don't want to take PrEP every day, that you can take it I think it's 2 or 3 days before you're going to have a sexual encounter. Problem is a lot of times you just don't know. So
right, I certainly
an injectable can help. And then there's also the depivorine ring for women. They can put a ring in their vagina that has PrEP.
You're kidding.
And it's slow releasing. It's once a month.
So I just released a video, Pride at the Bathhouse, and I went through a couple of ways that you can protect yourself, and I talked about U equals U and PrEP and stuff. I did miss one thing though, and I know we're talking about HIV here, but in terms of other STIs and stuff, there's Doxy as well. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, and in fact, just I think in the last week or two, it's officially advised now, at least for now, for men and trans women to take doxypep on a regular basis after potential exposure or sexual activity.
Sorry, who specifically? Trans men and women?
Trans women and gay bisexual men who have sex with men. For now, because there's not enough research to show efficacy amongst cisgender women and trans men.
Sure. So this is something that you take regularly, or you take it after exposure?
It's after exposure. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So you just have your little jar at home and you just take your pill after your after exposure.
Instead of having a cigarette after sex, you just reach onto your nightstand for your little jar.
Yeah. And then one for you, one for me. Like
100.
Okay. All right. That's so with so many options, I mean, like this is amazing. What are you most excited about then of all of these things?
I'm excited about kind of being able to fight that whole disclosure conversation that happens so often.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for bringing that back to that. Actually, I wanted to ask you. Sorry, go on, but you reminded me.
I forgot the other thing. Sorry.
Oh God.
I'll get back to it.
That's my fault. It was the disclosure. Well, let's talk about the disclosure thing then, because this is what a huge topic. Because back in the day, we didn't know U equals U, for example. And I'm in Canada, and then so there was a whole legal issue around disclosure, and is it a crime? And if you don't tell somebody that you're HIV positive and you sleep with them, you know what I mean? Is that a crime? And so people were being charged with things, and it was a scary time because disclosing makes you very vulnerable, and there's a lot of shame and guilt and judgment around disclosing your status anyway to a stranger. Maybe you're not sleeping with a stranger. I do. But, some people sleep with people they know as well. But yeah, so we've come a long way from that. No, just U equals U has changed that conversation, which is great. But now what you brought up, which is different, and I hadn't heard about that, is do you even need to disclose them?
Right.
So where are people landing on that?
When people ask me that question or prompt that, I say it's a deeply personal question. I don't think we're having as nuanced of conversations about this as we need to. Mm-hmm. It's not straight, it's just not a straight thing, morality discussion. I think morality doesn't even really belong in the discussion. We're talking about health and medicine. And if you can't transmit, then you're not exposing someone to the risk, then what is there to be? Where does the morality come from? It's just, right. I understand the part of, if someone asks you directly and says, are you living with HIV? And you go, no. Okay, you're lying. There's a moral quandary there, especially if the person that you are engaged with, maybe you're going to date them, maybe you're going to be in a relationship, maybe it'll lead to marriage one day. It's like, if you start on that note of like being dishonest, at what point do you go, remember that thing I told you, and the longer you wait, how much harder does that get? Yeah. And what's the negative impact of that on a relationship? But what I don't see people talking about is not from the perspective of the person who wants to know your status, but from our perspective, living with HIV. And this assumption that we are just here to give you our very private medical information and shut up and move on. Excuse me. The reality is, for a lot of people, for example, someone lives in a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody, once something gets out, it's town news, it's town gossip. Mm-hmm. And you are expected to, for example, have a random hookup, and trust a complete stranger with your very sensitive private medical information, and that they are going to respect that and keep it to themselves. Are you even out? Are you out about your status at all? So this person could be like, maybe they are nice. Maybe they are like, I'm going to, trust your information and I'm not going to tell anybody. And in fact, maybe they want to go out on a date with you. Maybe they want to go on a relationship. What if the relationship falls apart and they go, well, F this guy. I'm going to go tell everybody that you're HIV positive. So there. And then all of a sudden the whole town knows. And now everybody's like, oh my God, wait, you're sleeping with men? You're gay? Oh, and your employer goes, oh, no. We are Christian. We do not employ your kind. We're going to fire you. We're not going to tell you why we're going to fire you. But my point is, it can disrupt your entire life in major, profound ways, just because someone was entitled enough to expect you to tell them something that has no physical impact on their health.
It's almost like being HIV positive, you give up the right to privacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not your body anymore. It's almost like everybody has the right to know. That's the stigma, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If everybody was having this conversation, or if everybody was like you and I, and we had, all the information at our fingertips, and we knew, and we had a good mindset about it, then maybe it wouldn't be as bad. But with all of the stigma and judgment and misinformation and the lies and everything, it makes disclosure not fun.
And it's not just information, it's trust. A lot of people have the information and they don't trust it. And
that's true, yes.
It's part of the problem is that government, healthcare, big pharma, they've kind of broken our trust in many ways. And we saw that over COVID and the pandemic. And so now everything is looked at very skeptically. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories. AIDS denialism is rearing its ugly head again. I mean, you have RFK Jr. talking about it on podcasts with Joe Rogan. It's like...
Well, especially in this climate, in this political climate of division and lies. I mean, just not truths, just being spoken as if they were. I mean, that doesn't help either.
And then on top of that, I'm just gonna layer it on. There's like this emotional pain body for a lot of people in the community that I'm just experiencing this very recently. I haven't talked about this openly yet, but I'm noticing among like cisgendered heterosexual women who have acquired HIV by virtue of their partner, and maybe their partner had an affair or was I don't want to use this term because it's not a supported term, but like they'll say on the DL men, and how it's really a problem of gay men. Once again, HIV it's a gay disease, it's a gay problem. They're giving it to women. Women cannot transmit it. I mean, technically they can, but they don't, and it's not about women, and so it's really all just a men thing, and that's the narrative that they're saying. So this is adding to a lot of confusion on social media now.
Oh, so many layers. Well, and the longer it's around, and the more things are changing. That's why what you do is so important, to keep everybody in the loop, in the know, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I feel like the science and healthcare communities have let us down a little bit in that they haven't been very transparent. They haven't like welcomed us into the room with their inner conversations, their studies, all their research. It's like almost like we have to like package information very like easily digestible little bits. I call it HIV 101 to social media because, people can't really understand anything that's too complicated, more than like 6th, 7th, or 8th grade reading level, and that's that. And that's literally what the directive is. It's like it needs to be at an 8th grade reading level. And I understand for a lot of people that's where it needs to be. But there are a lot of people, myself included, and you as well, who can understand more complex ideas and more complex language and want to have these discussions. We want to learn. We want to be in on these conversations. So I'm doing my best working with HIV cure research scientists and just HIV research in general, and helping to translate this dense, otherwise, gate kept science and research and just make it more accessible. And hopefully the audience could come on that ride with me and slowly start to pick up language and different concepts. And hopefully it'll like all come together and click the more we talk about it.
You would think that it would be to their best interest, the doctors and scientists and everything, to have a middle person like you know, taking that information and then deciphering it and sort of, you know, maybe dumbing it down for the rest of us or whatever. Like U equals U is so catchy and cute, and it's, you know, everybody can understand that. So, you know, not everybody's going to understand at the microbiological level, you know, what's going on, or nor do you want to, you know, necessarily.
I mean, I've been in rooms, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I just want to put this out. I've been in rooms in the past year with lead investigators in that they run their own labs, and they're like, this is it. Like, this is what we need. We need someone like you who understands it enough and can relay this to community in a way that's understandable.
Yeah.
So there is definitely acknowledgement there.
Good.
And support.
Good. This is, I mean, such a specific path that you've chosen. And I know that it started with your diagnosis, I guess, on your 27th birthday. In the bio, it said you were diagnosed with AIDS. Now, was it AIDS or were you HIV positive?
Yes.
Was it AIDS?
No, I appreciate you for clarifying that.
Yes.
And I've had people chastise me on social saying, you are an advocate. You need to know the difference between HIV and AIDS. You weren't diagnosed with AIDS. You had HIV. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a take. Sure. Yes, I was diagnosed with HIV. And then yes, a week later on my 27th birthday, I was sitting in a doctor's office and was told that I had, at that time, quote, full-blown AIDS.
So let me ask you, did you just happen to have an appointment on your birthday? It just happened to be your birthday? Or, I mean, that's just, I mean, happy birthday.
It's the universe, you know,
right?
Really thinking about me. No, yeah, I was there a week earlier and I had got my HIV diagnosis, and like it felt like my world was crumbling and falling. There was no U equals U at the time. There was no PrEP. There was none of that.
Yeah.
And this is pretty recent history. And they're just like, here's your appointment for next week. It was like, and I didn't have insurance. So I was waiting like 9 hours, days at county hospital to see a doctor. So there was no like, that day doesn't work for me. Can we do, you know, like Friday at 2 p.m.?
Yeah.
And nor did I even think about my birthday. I didn't even realize it was my birthday because I was so preoccupied with, okay, I'm going to die. So what do I do now?
No, Raif, don't say that. Did you think you were going to die?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was like, so what do I do with the last, I don't know, 2-3 years of my life? Do I finish UCLA? Do I, travel the world? What do I do?
There was medication at the time. I mean, this is only like 12 years ago or something, you said?
Yes, it was 12 years ago.
So, I mean, there was medication. I was diagnosed more than that, and I didn't think I was going to die. Although I also had full-blown AIDS. In fact, they threw me into chemotherapy because I had KS as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no, I was dead. I was like death's door. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing, just the turnaround.
Oh, I don't want to say I shouldn't be here, but I wouldn't be here if it was a couple years earlier, I would say. Maybe a few years earlier. Like, I wouldn't even be here.
Incredible.
So, yeah.
No, they didn't. At that time, they didn't even give me medication when I first got my HIV diagnosis. It was like,
really?
Come back in a week and we'll give you more info. And that's when they put me on medication. So in the interim, I was like,
oh, I see. Because I think you have to be a certain level before you start medication. Is that the way it still operates?
No.
They
now
just
it's
start you
as
right
soon
away?
as it's detected, you're on it.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Even if you're not, it's like, take it anyway. So it doesn't, stay in your body.
Right. Well, and like PrEP is like a little dose of that too, right?
PrEP is missing a major component for if you have acquired HIV.
If you actually have it.
PEP is the one that's like ours, where like you have been exposed within 72 hours.
Yeah.
You take PEP and it will prevent it from staying in your body.
I want to hear about your victim mindset too, because I know, I mean, you've come such a long way, as have I in my journey. At the beginning, I was destroyed. What was this victim mindset that you had that you've been able to overcome?
Yeah, I every once in a while too, I'll kind of reflect on who I was pre-diagnosis too, and I cringe at just just thinking about my interactions with people and my relationships. It was so different from who I am now. But I would say that as a kid, I was born in the Netherlands. I came to the US when I was almost 5 years old with my mom. We were fleeing from my biological father, who
Oh, wow.
was in jail for beating my mom.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
he was just a very perverse guy who did a lot of unsavory, illegal things as well. And immediately we went into hiding. Like, it was one of those, like, I can't be in the newspapers. I can't be like in
Mm,
anything like outward facing, for fear that he might find us, kill her, kidnap me, and take me back to either Holland
Rafe,
or Morocco. Who knows?
you're kidding.
So he was my literal boogeyman growing up. I would have nightmares about him just charging into my house looking for me, and I'm hiding under the dining
God.
room table. Yeah. So I went by a different name too. My name was Timmy Zimmer. Ooh.
Oh, were
It
you a
was
porn star? Or like, no, were you a 90s like sitcom? Like, were
Yeah,
you on Saved by
yeah,
the Bell or
exactly,
something?
totally,
Timmy Zimmer.
totally, exactly. 90s. That's my mom was like, that was the most American name she could think of.
Yeah.
Zimmer was my her, like, the guy that she met, my who ended up being my stepdad. His last name, never
Okay.
adopted, so it was never like a legal name.
Okay.
But so there was that, and then I came here, in a foreign country. I'm living in Orange County, California, a very white, conservative,
Hmm.
Republican, Christian
The Orange Curtain.
county.
Yeah.
Yes. And me being brown and not having money at all whatsoever, and not knowing American customs, being that
Hmm.
weird kid, I just got picked on a lot. I was bullied relentlessly.
And
And then
gay.
at some point, I would say probably around fourth or fifth grade, everyone else knew I was gay before I did, and
Oh.
started, calling me every gay slur you can think of.
They love singling somebody out, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah, they
love
love
that.
it. They love a queen to make a victim.
Hmm.
But I guess my point is that as a kid, I was a victim in many ways, and I dealt with a lot of trauma. My stepdad also that my mom met here was an alcoholic and chronic depressive,
Mm.
emotionally distant. So there was a lot of struggle growing up. The problem is when I got into my teen years and became an adult, I had it had become a part of who I was, this victim mindset. And I kind of, on a subconscious level, learned that being a victim awarded you certain privileges, like in
Mm.
class. If you show up late, or if you don't get your assignment done on time, and you explain to your teacher what you're going through, they will, have a soft ear and console you, and give you grace and give you extra time. And you go, and so it's just like a learned behavior that being a victim will get you things. And that became a part of who I was. And so instead of taking responsibility for myself, it was like, oh, what's the excuse? How do I get out of this? How do I explain my way out of situations?
Whose fault is this?
Yeah, anybody my own. Usually it's like things out of my control, like life and circumstance. But
Yeah.
as an adult, that really becomes a handicap, and it really prevents you from reaching your potential. And so I see, not to say that getting HIV and then AIDS is a consequence of my actions, that I'm like somehow like at fault, but there is a definite progression of me not doing things that were in my best interest, and not using my best thinking, that at least exposed me to the potential of encountering situations and things that were not good for me. And this being one of them. Like, for example, the relationship that I was in at the time, about three years into the relationship, this person had exhibited many red flags and many signs that they were
Mm.
lying, that they were, talking to other guys, things like that. That if I was a self-respecting person who understood that I deserved more and that I held more value as a human being, would
Yeah.
have said, this relationship is not for me, goodbye. But I didn't. And potentially,
That's a
I mean,
lot.
sorry, I can't say that he's the one who gave it to me. It's
Yeah.
likely,
Yeah.
but there you go.
That's a lot to put on yourself, though. I mean, like, hindsight is 2020, first of all, and it's a lot easier to now. All the chips have fallen. It's easy to look at a situation and be like, "Oh, I should have known." I mean, when you're in a relationship, you're so close to it. It's hard to see it for what it is. You
Totally.
know, I was
I
dating somebody at one point, and it was so toxic, but I was just like enamored. But at some point, I kept getting hurt, kept getting hurt. So I actually just asked my friends, and I said, "You guys make my decisions for around this guy from now on." And they did, and it took everything in me to like follow their advice, but they knew what I needed more than I did in that moment, and it worked out. So I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
isn't that
I've
funny?"
never heard anyone have the wherewithal to actually commit to something like that.
It's no, it's hard because it goes against everything. Because I wanted to do something, and they're like, "Don't do it. Don't go meet him at the airport,
Oh,
or whatever." And
oof.
it was killing me. But you know what? Now, years later, I look back, and they were right.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were right. So it's hard.
Yeah, you're right. It is, it is a lot to put on myself, but I can handle it at the end of the day. Like I can handle it, and I think once you learn that you can take on the responsibility of an accountability for things
Hmm.
without judging it, then
Hmm.
suddenly a lot of that weight goes away. The
Mm.
judgment is what's really heavy. And once you say
Mm.
it's not, like it's okay, I messed up, I didn't know better, it's fine, it's okay, that doesn't even matter. It's just what can I learn from this?
That's it. I struggled with I knew better, I didn't do better. That was my big thing. I
Well,
knew
we're emotional human beings. We don't make decisions based on logic
right. And I was
most of the
high
time.
a lot.
Well, that doesn't help either.
No, meth is not good for decision making. It doesn't have a clear head. It doesn't. It makes you take chances. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have it without my meth years. Probably I would, but I probably would have also made better decisions, like getting tested more often. And that's why when I finally did see the doctor, I was like ground zero, like blew up. Like it was just, they were like, here's all the pills, get in chemo. Like I really suffered at the beginning. So, and I
Was
didn't
that the
have to.
catalyst for you too, to like change your behavior, the diagnosis?
I was already sober. No, I
Okay.
had gotten sober. I think I had gotten sober, and then I started to notice things about myself and my body and stuff that I didn't realize when I was high, or didn't care as much. And
Hmm.
that's you know, but I knew better. I didn't do better. It took me a long time to forgive myself for that. Because it's easy to say you knew better, you didn't do better, but I didn't know. I didn't actually know how bad it could get. I didn't actually know, so
Yeah, you can
give
know
yourself a break.
things on an intellectual level, but not really get it on an emotional level. What is that? What is
Yes.
that? What are the implications of that knowledge? We understand like the very top level. This is what it is,
Hmm.
but how does that actually impact me in my life?
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, cards on the table, I kind of wanted it. I was tired of being scared. I didn't want to be scared. You're always running from something. Is this it? Is this the time? Is this part of me just wanted all of that to end and just be like, you're done with it. It's done. Turn the page.
Totally, I totally get that.
Yeah. So that's something. Um, let's talk about your bodybuilding because um, I have a theory about it's a group of people when they're faced with adversity. I'm one of these people. When they're faced with, especially like health wise, health challenges, life has kind of put that on you. That I'll speak for myself. That I'm the type of person that takes on a huge physical challenge, like running a marathon or doing like an Ironman thing or something, to prove to myself that I can overcome, that I am a healthy person, that I can overcome, and to challenge myself physically and mentally as well. Um, is that Does that resonate with you and with what you do with the bodybuilding at all?
That totally. I like to refer to the concept of post traumatic growth, and that's
Oh,
this.
okay.
We all are familiar with post traumatic stress disorder, and we in
Yeah.
response to extremely traumatic stimulus, we experience trauma. But there's also this other side of it where, in response to this trauma, we experience intense growth. out of it. And that's definitely how I responded to HIV. It wasn't how I responded previously, because again, victim mindset. I would just crater. Everything would come down with me. But once I got out of that mindset, then I was like, okay, if I'm gonna continue living my life, I have a new lease on life. I'm not gonna die in 2 to 3 years like I thought. So what am I gonna do, Raif, to change this time around? Like, we got to switch it up. So let's do the opposite. Let's take accountability for everything. Let's be the leader. And so I thought, okay, well, what's the best way to kind of like show myself, me overcoming this physical ailment, was to physically change. And so I just started going to the gym constantly. And this was after I had broken up with my boyfriend at the time when I was diagnosed. I was like, I need to get out of this relationship. I mean, this was a year later, but that's a long story. I didn't have a car. I lost my job. I had broken my ankle. This is all after my diagnosis. I didn't have any money. So I was living in it was essentially like a mud room in the valley. It had doors, on both sides.
Wow.
It was like a walkway. And it was $400 a month, and I had no car, and I was like, I need to get to work. And so I needed something so I could take the train to LA Fitness and go to the gym. I didn't know how to do anything, but I saw the machines. I would look at the little infographic on each machine and go, okay, these are the muscles I'm working out. This is what I need to do.
Okay.
And just that's how I started.
What did you call it? Growth? How do you say it?
Post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth. I love that. That's exactly. It's taking control of the situation and turning it. It's growth.
Yeah.
And it can be obsessive, and it can be over the top, and to a certain nth degree. But I guess it's better than going the other way. And
hell yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who have been diagnosed with HIV who say this was the moment when something profound changed in my life. So I think a lot of people can
something
relate
positive.
To that. Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point, one of the trainers at the gym saw my chutzpah and was like, I compete. I'm a bodybuilder. I mean, he clearly was. He was like 6'2" and obviously on all the steroids, and was like, I think you'd be great. You should compete. And I'm like, it's not really my thing. Like, I don't want to do steroids because it's kind of important for my journey that I'm like doing this naturally.
Yeah.
And he said, that's fine. Like, you can join a natural federation with natural athletes and compete that way. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to get that big. And he's like, no. There's physique. And those are the guys in board shorts who aren't huge, but they're ripped AF.
Yeah.
Incredibly symmetrical, but they're still jacked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, sign me up. Let's go.
I know. You need to take off your shirt now, please. No, when I read natural, I was like, okay, that means no steroids. Because back in the day, so I used to live in LA too. Back in the day when I was in the porn industry as well, there's this, standard you have to be, right? So I was doing steroids. So I had my story with steroids as well. So when I saw natural, I was like, oh, okay, of course he's doing it the natural way. Yeah. I love that they have to differentiate between natural and bodybuilding they have to differentiate between the two,
Yeah. And no judgment there either. Like, I'm sure at some point, once my own natural testosterone starts to wane, I will be supplementing, and then I'll also have the added benefit of growing muscle even faster.
Yeah. Hello.
But it's like, it was an experiment for me. Like, how far can I take this on my own?
So do you do competitions?
I have, until my last one was in 2019. It was my first pro show at Muscle Beach in Venice, and I placed third. I think the guys that placed first and second were like, they're veterans and they compete internationally, and I'm like, I highly respect them. So I was like, third was it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna compete again. When the lockdowns happened, gyms were shut down. I got depressed. I gained 45 pounds. I lost a bunch of muscle mass. So I'm kind of starting over, but I'm getting there. I found my obsession again, and hopefully I'm thinking maybe next year I'll be ready to start competing again.
Wow. Well, keep us posted. What's coming up for you? What's next for Raif? Are you talking to anybody interesting or in the scientific world, or?
Yeah, constantly. I'm doing
Hmm.
tons of interviews. They're ramping up even more. Um, I'm also gearing up for the International AIDS Conference in Munich.
Oh,
It's
good.
the
Yeah.
world's biggest HIV/AIDS conference. It's in different cities, and this year it's going to be in Munich. And so a lot of new and ongoing research will be shared there. I've also been asked to moderate a symposium on the latest different methods towards HIV cure using gene editing. So that's really interesting
Mm.
too. A lot of talk around CRISPR and other gene editing.
Oh, I'll have to have you back on after you go to the conference.
Yeah, for sure. I'm down anytime.
New information. When is that, you said?
That'll be July. It's I think the 22nd to the 26th.
In July. Oh, so it's coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Okay. Well, for everybody that's watching, if you want to get in touch with Rafe, I'm going to put all of your handles and all of your links. Is there anywhere
Oh,
you specifically you want somebody to find you? You
no, I
want
mean
to
you
say
can just
something?
look.
You want to say something? What is it?
It's totally vain and selfish, but I was like, let me explain this because you can see my hairline's kind of
Explain
looking
what? What are you
funky.
talking about?
Look at my hairline. You can
Well,
see that.
okay.
I
Well,
had
what is
a
it?
so I had a hair transplant.
Oh,
Just a little
wow.
plug. I had a hair transplant in
Nice. Okay.
February,
Okay.
the beginning of February. So it's been what, March, April, May, June, 4 months
Yeah.
since.
Okay.
So they basically added 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Here, I'll come up close so you can see it.
Yeah. So
Of
they brought the
hairline.
line down. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah.
So and they did all this area too by my
So
temple,
it's growing in.
but it's just starting to like fill in. It takes about like 10 to 12 months for it to really reach its peak fullness. But the
Yeah.
thing about getting hair transplants, I did it in Turkey.
I was
A,
gonna
it's
say
cheap.
Turkey. I knew it.
B, they offered to do it if I, like talked about it and did content and stuff like that.
You're
But
kidding.
they're one of the few clinics that will take in people living with HIV or other bloodborne pathogens. Because a lot of them they're like, we just won't even touch it.
Can I? So I go and get massages and stuff here, and sometimes on the forum it says, What do you have?" And HIV is on there. I don't gotta
Hmm.
say nothing, right? Do I
I don't,
legally? I can't
I
even
don't
give it
think
to you.
legally.
And we're not having sex even. So like, what are you talking
I think
about?
it's more of a like a liability thing on their part to know. But I don't think it makes there's no like criminalization like if you don't tell your massage therapist that you have HIV.
Yeah, and I'm not sleeping with you. Well,
And
not
the
all of
thing is,
some of them.
what makes the US different from some place like Turkey is that we have standard procedures, medical procedures for handling patients and even like tattoo artists. It's the same thing. It's like
Yeah,
you
that's
treat
right.
everyone as if they have something that's transmissible. That's why you wear gloves.
Yes.
That's why you
Yeah.
sanitize everything. Everyone
Yes.
gets
Yes.
treated the same as if
Correct.
there is a risk of exposure.
Right.
However,
That's
in a place like Turkey, it's not that way.
ah.
They kind of change how they treat someone based on their knowledge about that person. So if they know you have HIV and they don't know whether your viral load is, they're not going to give you a blood test to see, like,
Yeah.
are you transmissible or not? And so
Yeah.
that's like a huge, like, oh, then you have technicians that are like, oh, I'm going to be literally operating on someone who I don't know if I get pricked myself, whether I'm going to give myself HIV. So a lot of places are like, they wipe their hands clean of it, which is really unfortunate. And there's a lot of
Yeah. They just said we don't want to
misinformation.
deal with it at all. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing about this place is they do charge a little more if you
Mm.
have like HIV or hepatitis. Or,
They
and there's a couple
charge
other
you
things.
more if you have HIV?
Yes, because not just because, but because
Oh, well,
they've for instance the place I went to they created a separate room
oh,
that's
for God's sake.
I know. So I come at it with empathy because of the status quo of how people are treated.
Okay.
So if you think about it, everyone who's not in this special room should be, because everyone wants to be in a room that's like regularly like sanitized and cleaned and is
Yeah.
like places here. But most
Okay.
places won't do that if you don't have something that they're concerned about. Also for protecting them, but also for protecting us. And they'll, instead of reusing things, needles,
Right.
they'll
Right.
use disposable, which here
So
we
you
use
should,
disposable
if you go to
needles.
Turkey, so what you're saying is when you go to Turkey to have any kind of procedure, tell them you have HIV.
Pay more,
Pay more,
get the special treatment, and then you're
clean
going to be
needles.
better off medically. Yeah,
that's something to consider.
And also, and the other expense is the manager was telling me he has to pay the technicians more because they're afraid.
Oh, for God's sake!
Of the exposure.
Okay.
So in order to even get them to work, he has to pay them more.
But how much is worth it paying more? So now
and
you're
it's still
post-HIV, and I just gave you HIV. Was the $50 more worth it?
It's still going to be half the cost that it is here in the U.S.
Right. Even with the flight and everything included in there, right?
They typically will take care of the hotel and transportation included in the procedure.
And they did it for you because you did content for them?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I just had to take care of the flight.
And I want lots of things done. So maybe I need to...
Well, I'll send you the info. It's Hair Center of Turkey.
Well, I don't need hair. I have lots of hair, but...
Oh, okay.
I want other things.
But other things.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk off the air. Okay. Raif, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep watching for sure. I'm excited about Munich, the latest advancements. And for everybody, like I said, everything is going to be down in the description. All of the links. Please reach out to him, follow him, like him. It's important work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us today, Raif.
Thanks, Patrick.
And I will see you in the next episode. Mwah!